Okay, guys, we're going to look today at question 4 on paper 2. This is one of the more tricky ones with the technique, so I thought we'd go through that one. And what you're doing in this question is the comparing the ideas and the perspectives of the two sources. The ideas are basically the thoughts, the feelings, the opinions that each writer has about something. And the perspectives are the writer's unique voice about the focus of the question. And what we mean by that is like, why are they writing? What is their own experience or viewpoint? You can think about the tone that they use. So let's have a go. Firstly, we want to know what we're comparing. And here we can see that we're comparing the way writers convey different thoughts about camping experiences. So it's about camping experiences. And you can use stuff from the previous questions, question 2 and 3, to help you to support your ideas. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to look at it fresh. It's been a while since I did that last question. So we'll just look at it fresh. And if we're looking at the ideas and perspectives about camping, let's start with source A. So any evidence is good. Just pick what stands out to you. And I can see that this person says about camping holidays. Emma Kennedy says holidays were assault courses of the mind and body. So that's a nice metaphor there, juxtaposition of mind and body. And it suggests that camping to her was horrible. It was very grueling. Possibly even she felt it was dangerous. So she views it in very negative terms there. Now, as I mentioned, look at the perspective. And the way you can do that is look at the blurb here or here as well. And it tells you who she was. She's Emma Kennedy. It's from her autobiography. And it's telling her, if you remember, it was when she was a child. It was when she was a child. So it's a childhood memory. And we need to find a quote to reflect that perspective. But it's a childhood memory. And we can see that here. She says, in my 9 years on the planet, I'd learned one thing. Going on holidays was awful. Were awful. So that is hyperbolic. It's very exaggerated. And it shows she's only lived for 9 years. She's very inexperienced. So we've got some quotes to show her perspective. But you do want to try and cover the whole extract because everything's here so far. We've only found things from the second paragraph. But when I mean the whole extract, I don't mean you have to find quotes from everywhere, but find something from somewhere else. For example, at the end, when there's this heavy rain and they're trapped in the tent, she says, well, there was something deliciously spine tingling about being trapped inside the tent. For me, that shows quite a childhood view. Like if you're an adult, you're going to be frustrated that your holiday's ruined and also all your properties are going to be ruined. But she's finding it enjoyable, like quite a childish, imaginative viewpoint there. So that's about 3 quotes there. Ideally, we find 3 or 4 quotes from each text. Now let's look at source B. What is their view or their feeling about camping? Well, at the beginning, we can see they describe this lovely lake where everything is beautiful and unspoiled. So clearly, they view it very highly. They think it's this special, pristine place that's really in touch with nature and far away from the stress of a city. Now let's think about the perspective of this person. Remember, source A was a childhood memory from an autobiography. This one is non-fiction. It's an actual a non-fiction book about camping in the wilderness. So it's going to be researched. It's a writer, and he's an adult. So he's going to be looking at it from a more mature perspective. And we can see that, for example, when he describes how the campsite is built. This paragraph, the site for a shelter is selected. It goes on. In an incredible space of time, there is the skeleton of a house. So he just basically, in this part, he just details how the house is built with a lot of detail, not much emotion. And this shows his mature perspective is quite researched. A child is not going to be aware of all of these steps like source A. So that's how they're kind of different perspectives. And again, I want to touch on something from elsewhere in the text, maybe towards the end, when actually the tone shifts and he starts to be quite critical of camping and its effects on the environment. He says, The woods have been spoiled. The stumps are ugly. There's unsightly debris. And man has wrought his usual wrong upon nature. So saying that humans just always ruin nature. So we got 3 quotes from each one. And when we're writing, so obviously you'll be annotating, highlighting the techniques because that's also relevant here. But what I like to structure it as is 1 or 2 paragraphs comparing the ideas or the thoughts or feelings about camping. And then another one which compares something different and goes into the perspectives, like how each writer is coming at this topic from a different angle. So let's have a look. Let's try the first one. We could say, make a bit smaller text. Okay, it's not going to be smaller. In source A, the writer, and use the keywords from the question, you can say expresses thoughts and feelings that regarding camping, well, about camping. Expresses thoughts and feelings that camping is very arduous and difficult, stating it is like an assault course of the mind and body. This now highlight the techniques because analysis, methods, writers' techniques and methods is key as well for this question. So you can say the metaphor comparing them to a military assault course suggests they are extremely grueling and like almost designed to break your spirit. Like a punishing army drill. It also suggests that it is fraught with danger and difficulty and hardship, the exact opposite of why you usually go on holiday. I might go on and say the juxtaposition of mind and body emphasizes the holistic or the complete nature of the distress inflicted by holidays, portraying them as not only physically demanding, but mentally difficult, or maybe even, but possibly even traumatic, as these experiences live long in the mind well after it is over. So I've only looked at 1 quote there. Another way you could do less analysis, but introduce another quote. So it's both ways work. So let's now compare it to source B. By contrast, in source B, and I'm going to say initially because later he changes it to being very critical. But initially, the writer, and you can use the names actually. So I think the name was Charles Warner, Kennedy, source B, Warner, initially. And it's good to talk about the writers' names as well because it kind of just shows that you're looking at this text as a construct that each writer has written from a unique point of view, but about the same topic. So we can think about this writer, Warner, initially expresses appreciation for the beauty of the camping holiday. They highlight the lovely lake, which is beautiful and unspoiled. Now, there's some alliteration there. Remember, alliteration can be hard to relate to meaning, but why would you say lovely? It's almost like he's singing la, la, la. So we could talk about that, what that might show about the tone. Alliteration implies a sense of savoring the serene environment, and it has an almost song-like quality, as if the picturesque setting is compelling the writer to sing its praise. Now I'm going to talk about the next quote. See, it's just a little analysis there. I can say, however, this shifts to one of condemnation and criticism by the end of the text, as the writer states, or as Warner states, that man has wrought his usual wrong upon nature. Now we can highlight that. So the juxtaposition of man versus nature emphasizes how the campers did not live in harmony with the environment, and in fact left the area ugly and uninhabitable, ruining the beauty that once abounded. And the verb wrought suggests humans are almost demonic with evil intentions, only to exploit and abuse nature. So now it's good because it's about comparing the ideas and perspectives. It's good to do a little comparison there, just to link it back to the question. You can do that at the end of every paragraph, or at the end of every second paragraph, or throughout. So I'll show you an example. I can say, as such, whilst Kennedy expresses frustration with the harsh nature of her camping experiences, Warner highlights the way in which humans inevitably destroy the natural beauty of an environment through campsites. So that's a little summative comparison of the feelings. Actually, I'd probably say expresses feelings of frustration, highlights his thoughts on the way. So we've used the keywords from the question, thoughts and feelings. So now, as I said, the next one's going to be about the perspectives, talk about the different perspectives. In source A, the writer's perspective is, so remember, we're using the blurb. The writer's perspective is from an autobiography of her childhood experience camping. Well, perspective reveals thoughts from an autobiography of her childhood experience camping. As such, she describes how in her 9 years on the planet, she had learnt one thing, that camping, or that holidays, were awful. So the use of this time reference emphasizes the simplicity of her view and her lack of experience in the world, but also highlights her childish emotional reasoning that camping must be universally bad if she had a bad experience on it. And the hyperbole in the phrase one thing suggests, well, it's kind of humorous, has a humorous tone, and suggests that camping is a uniquely terrible experience, or a uniquely terrible activity. However, by the end of the extract, she finds a childlike thrill in being exposed to the storm and her tent being battered, saying that there was something deliciously spine-tingling about being trapped. I mean, the metaphor here suggests that the storm gave a sense of novel thrill and adventure that children usually enjoy, fueling their imagination and play. Moreover, the fact that she enjoyed being trapped contrasts an adult perspective who would feel dismayed at the destruction to their property and the inability to have a nice, relaxing holiday. So now we're going to compare it to Charles Warner. By contrast, Charles Warner's perspective is of a writer exploring the trend of Americans camping in the wild. In the third paragraph, he focuses on a detailed breakdown of how temporary campsites are built, highlighting how in an incredible space of time there is a skeleton of a house. This highlights the skill set and capacities of the group and their abilities to construct full shelters at high speeds. However, it hints at the fact that it may not be structurally sound enough to deal with all weather conditions, as we do find out. Now, I'm going to do that quote from the end. However, by the end, he highlights how damaging the construction was to the area, highlighting the unsightly debris. The adjective unsightly contrasts the beauty of the nature and emphasizes how damaging the campers have been to the peaceful, pristine nature. Bringing rubbish and litter that was that ruined the purpose. So they're bringing rubbish and litter from cities that just transport the same problems to a place that was meant for the opposite. Transforming the place. Actually, that's going to be a really long-worded one, so I'll leave that. As such, so now I'm going to do that nice comparative thing at the end, comparing those perspectives, feelings on camping. As such, whilst Kennedy presents an excitable and exaggerated perspective from her childhood on camping, Warner depicts a more detached and critical viewpoint on the damage it does to the environment. So there you go, guys. I haven't spell checked it yet, but let me show you what's getting marks for you here. So we're clearly identifying the thoughts and feelings here in our point sentences of both writers, and we're comparing them as well by contrast. And we've got some nice comparative summative sentences, links at the end of some paragraphs, which explicitly compare the two thoughts, feelings, and perspectives. Also at the final sentence there. Now, also, we've supported each of our points with a range of quotes. We found quotes here. We found quotes here. We found two quotes in the last two paragraphs, which is kind of better. The more you can find is better. So I would recommend doing it like this. Less effects, but two quotes. Found this one here and this one here. And the analysis is insightful. You know, we found the techniques, the metaphor. We've explained it in a lot of detail. We haven't repeated ourselves. We found a lot of different techniques as well. So if you can do all of those things, you're meeting every aspect of the mark scheme for this question. So have a go, guys. Practice it. Read read some past papers and see if you can identify thoughts, feelings, and perspectives and have a go yourself. So good luck for Friday.